A county in Georgia and John Fetterman both file lawsuits to make sure that all of their votes can come in no matter what time they come in, when they come in, or where they come in. So we'll be talking about that and what that means and where we go from there as we decide whether or not we will get the results tonight from the midterms or whether they will mysteriously come forward days later and be completely different from what we see. So we'll talk about that and what's happening there and where we go with that. The DOJ is coming out to make sure that they are watching the polls. Yeah, that's right. It's not just armed MAGA people in Arizona watching ballot boxes. Armed FBI agents could be watching your polls as we sit here and decide the direction the country is going to be going. So we'll talk about that and what that means as, well, today is the day for midterms, so we'll go over some of that. A Michigan school is allowed to read an anti-abortion pitch on the morning newspaper thanks to a federal judge. So we'll go over some of that and what that means. And Kathy Griffin defies Elon Musk's order that she not go on to Twitter and uses her dead mother's account instead. It is going to be all this and more. It's midterm day. Welcome to the end of midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. It's midterm day, everybody, if you choose to vote. And I do know that there are people out there that watch this program, and some of them that watch back after the fact, that will not vote because they feel that it is imposing their will on other people, and they don't care for that. John, Porch Boys. So, but if you do vote, I'm not going to try to force you to vote. I'm not going to be like one of these, call the activism, JoJo from Brooklyn, Jersey, my wife's son reliant, or people like that you must vote like your daughter's life depends on it, like your life depends on it. No, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not like that. I will be voting. I will come out and say that. There are people on my ballot, and while we were in the title card, I expressed this out to somebody else over on Twitter that there are people on my ballot that I cannot vote for. I'm going to come right out and say that. I cannot check the box for Ron Johnson. If he's going to go beat Mandela Barnes, which I think he's going to, he is going to have to do so without my support because I can't do it. I can't. I will be writing myself in for Senate for this area because I can't. He was Jesus. No, I'm sorry. He was warmonger, Liz Cheney, Bushite his first term. His second term, he was Jesus, and stopped the spending and all about the term limits. And now in the third term, he is super, ultra, duper, mega. We don't know where this guy lands. All he is he's out for power, and I can't do that. But regardless, if you choose to vote, do make an informed decision about who you're voting for. Please, if anything else, do that. I've tried as much as I can to provide you with the proper tools to make an informed decision about who's on your ballot. Some of you are in Illinois, and, I mean, your votes don't count anyway, because I know that you're not going to be voting for the popular party in Illinois. Some of you are in New York and are in kind of the same boat. Although that governor's race in New York is really competitive in a way that I never thought that I would see New York State competitive. And even Los Angeles has a very, very contentious mayor's race as well. We'll be talking about that as we go. So we've got our last minute pitch for the midterms. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about, our second finance article today is sort of a crossover between electioneering stuff and finance here. So we'll be talking about that. And yeah, also make sure that if you choose to do so, today is the day. Today is the day. Get down to that ballot box and vote. And vote your conscience. Vote for who you feel is best. And, well, we'll see where the chips fall and where they go. So, before we get started, there's one announcement I have to make off of this. The fundraiser we talked about yesterday and on Friday, I will not be reading from right now because I don't know the details of what's going on with that. Something happened. Some of you will have to reach out to KTZed because I don't know how much Athena Barbie doll is willing to share. Galaxy Barbie, I don't know how much she's willing to share right now. I know KTZed knows, and she can make the determination whether or not to tell you if you reach out to her and ask her. I cannot make that determination a whole cloth across everybody. This may be a very private matter. So if you want to know, reach out to her. She will make the decision. She'll probably ask Galaxy Barbie who Galaxy Barbie wants to know. And we'll go from there. But yes, as of right now, until I get further direction as to what's going to be happening with this, I will not be reading from the Give, Send, Go, that the fundraiser that we worked with yesterday. But yeah, reach out to her on that. But also, before we get started, make sure you guys go check out, speaking of KTZed, great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Overruled with KTZed, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, and PJ Patriot. Go check out all these great people who are out here bringing you news and culture by the common man, for the common man. It's a dream of mine to get people the news and the culture from people who have had to make the same decisions that you all have had to make, rather than have to get all of your information from people who wear suits that cost more than most of your houses. Yes, I know, Fanning, you're an outlier on that one. I understand. But suits that cost more than the majority of our houses here. I mean, even the building that I live in right now that I'm renting, I'm sure that Anderson Cooper's suit costs more than this. And I've seen the real estate listing. I know what this building just sold for. And I'm sure that Anderson Cooper has at least 2 suits that cost more than this house did. So, with that, we will move on. We'll get into the finance. We'll see what's happening with that and where this goes. Starting with the Dow, which turned up yesterday again ahead of midterm sentiments. Now, IBD talks about this. I didn't pre-read this, so I don't know which direction IBD believes this is going to go, but it does look like the investors are at least pleased with the way that the polling in the midterms are going. If they were not pleased with this, I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't see a 32,827 point Dow up well over another 400 points from what we saw the day before. So we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the gridlock. And well, the big one that I see that I'm curious about with this is it's been rumored by many people, our friends to the left, that if Republicans get control, they'll let the U.S. default on its debt. And well, I kind of want to see if that's actually a possibility or not. I really do. I don't think they have it in them. But I'd like to see them hold the admin's feet to the fire as well. So we'll see what's happening with that and where this goes. Let me get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing. Looking in at your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin today is at 19,686 US dollars even. That's a 1,000-point drop from yesterday, almost 905 US dollars and 90 US cents, dropping 4.4% just on the day today. And it's been a little bit of a wild ride with Bitcoin as it's gone because, well, right now the markets don't seem to like uncertainty unless you're over on the Dow side where they seem to live on uncertainty. So we'll continue to watch this and what's happening with this. Let's pull this out to the 5-day and see what happened yesterday. Oh, that's what happened yesterday. The Bitcoin dropped off a cliff right before we got started today. So, and another mini cliff as it dropped off today. So yeah, that was, I mean, we were up over 21,000 at one point throughout the weekend, and now we're back to 19,686. So, well, there's some other people that are either thinking that they're going to need some money really quick, or want to be out of the markets because they think that somebody's going to come along and regulate it out of existence. So that's what we see coming up. The Dow, looking at gas prices across the Madison area, which from the interstate yesterday, I saw $3.99. But looking in at what they have here, we have the BP on the north side is at $3.86. The Quick Trip entering the Isthmus is at $3.80. The Amoco on the Isthmus is also at $3.80. The Speedway on the far west side is at $4. That's out on the Beltline. Going up towards Middleton, we get another $3.80. The Exxon $3.74. The Quick Trip heading out in that direction, which is always funny to me to talk about a Quick Trip in Madison because, well, the city of Madison made point blank clear that they were not going to allow Quick Trip into Madison. Because Quick Trip, by the way, does a lot of Republican donations. They made a lot of donations to Scott Walker when he was the governor. And I think a part of that is how they've been able to expand the way that they have, based on loosening of restrictions that Scott Walker was able to get through that Tony Evers has not been able to reverse because he doesn't have a state assembly to do so here. And I do think that if the state assembly flips in Evers' favor and Evers retains the governorship, Quick Trip's expansion is going to drop, and they might even start to dry up. But you know, when Quick Trip came in and they bought all the, I think it was Speedway that they bought? No, not Speedway. PDQ. When they bought PDQ out and started turning all the PDQs over into Quick Trip, well, now we've got Quick Trip all across Madison. So that's what we see coming off of that. Little side note on Wisconsin history, on local corporate power. But still holding steady from what we saw mostly yesterday. Looking in at IBD for the morning. Let's see what they have to say. Dow futures rise ahead of election day. Nvidia jumps on new chip for China. From Scott Latonin. Dow futures rose modestly Tuesday morning as U.S. voters headed to the polls. Chip giant Nvidia jumped 3% after introducing high-end chips designed to meet U.S. restrictions for export to China. Key earnings movers Tuesday were Diamondback Energy, Global Foundries, Lyft, Mosaic, and Shockwave Medical. Diamondback traded a fraction lower in pre-market trade, while Global Foundries rose more than 3%. Lyft shares dove more than 17%, Mosaic shares inched higher, and Shockwave shares lost more than 4%. EV giant Tesla traded a fraction lower Tuesday morning. The Dow Jones tech leaders, Apple and Microsoft, were squarely higher ahead of today's stock market open. Among the top stocks to buy and watch, Albemarle, IBD Leaderboard Stock Watch List, Arista Networks, CF Industries, New Fortress Energy, as well as Dow Jones names Merck and United Health are among the top stocks to buy and watch. Arista Networks is on the IBD Leaderboard watch list stock. Albemarle was featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column, along with 3 other top stock ideas, United Health's IBD Stock of the Day on Thursday. Today, ahead of Tuesday's opening bell, the Dow rose 0.1, while the S&P moved up 0.2. The Nasdaq gained almost 0.5%, 0.45, in morning action, with Nvidia, Amgen leading the index. Among the ETFs, the Nasdaq 100 tracker, Invesco QQQ Trust, traded up 0.5%, while the SPDR S&P 500 ETF rose 0.25. The 10-year yield traded flat at 4.21 on Tuesday. Pausing after a 4-day win streak saw the 10-year Treasury yield close on its 52-week high. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices traded down nearly 1%, with West Texas Intermediate holding just above $91 a barrel. Last week, WTI futures hit their highest point since mid-October, which, by the way, does mean that your gas is going to start going up. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is running out, which is taking gas or oil out of the global marketplace, which means that you're going to start to see a little bit of struggle coming along with the gas prices. So do keep that in mind. It's going to take a couple days, maybe a couple weeks before it starts hitting the stations. But we are going to start to see some of this, and it's also heating season. So you've got natural gas putting a strain on that same market because it's sharing some of the same pipelines and some of the same distilleries and some of the same supply lines that go along with that. You've got places up in the Northeast that heat with diesel, and it's getting cold, so do keep that in mind. You've got places out there that heat with propane, a byproduct of gas production. So there's a little bit more competition right now for what's going on with the fuel, especially coming up with the winter. Plus, you're getting a winter blend, and I noticed that while taking a drive across Wisconsin yesterday, that the winter blend is here, and I don't get crap per mileage compared to what I got just a couple weeks ago, making the exact same trip. So that's going to be another thing that's going along with that. The more demand because you're going to be burning more fuel. So a few things to look at with that, a few things to watch as we go with the markets, and we will see what's happening with this. One thing, when we start talking about what's happening in the markets, where we're going with this and why the markets are up right now, is I do think that there is a sentiment among the investors right now, and they're probably not going to admit it because a lot of them are New York bound people, but I think a lot of them know that the hokum that's being put out here about it's Republicans that are blocking all of our efforts to make sure that we can't go back and end inflation, and they're making sure we can't stop inflation. All this other crap that they keep trying to force down our throats. There is a higher than 75% chance that by the end of the night, Congress, especially in the House, who holds the purse strings, will put a stop to government spending for the next 2 years. Or at least a major damper on it, including printing money to go off to the Ukraine. I mean, your responsibility, you're already done spending like your welfare and stuff around here. They're gonna keep going with that. They're gonna keep going with Medicare here, but the inflation may stop just over the fact that the fire hose will be over. And I do think that investors are looking at this and saying, is it time? Are we going to win? Are we going to do something off of this? But we'll continue to watch and see what happens with this because there's a lot of shenanigans that are going off on the polls. Let's grab one from the Blaze, and this is a little bit of a hybrid going both to midterm election, predictions and analysis, and the economy. Roth, and this is an op-ed from Carol Roth. The election is about the economy. Stupid. Yes, I'm starting at 6, by the way. When James Carville was a strategist with Bill Clinton's campaign against incumbent President H.W. Bush, he had a clear message in focus. The economy, stupid. That shouldn't be a surprise. While the political elite like to bicker and distract with a bunch of nonsense, when the financial foundation of the country is full of cracks, the economy is what matters to voters. It matters whether people can feed their families, afford to put gas in their cars, and heat their homes during the winter, let alone try to save and invest without seeing the retirement funds dissipate. This election is the same. It's the economy. After a severe devastation, voters get the chance to hold politicians accountable in the only way available to them today by voting, and finally get some change. While Biden and the Democrats have trotted out lies ranging from inflation, it's transitory, it's good for you, it's corporations' fault. Oh, that's the one I keep forgetting when I go through their little hope about inflation here. It's your fault, it's Putin's fault, etc. To saying the economy is strong as hell. People cannot be gaslit when they have to live with the consequences. Whether it is at the local, state, or federal level, there are people running for a re-election who have enabled a lot of destructive policy, and new people running who supported these efforts, and would do more of the same. So much damage has been caused that it's hard to encompass all the egregious economic and financial issues that have resulted from bad policy over the past 2+ years. Here's a starter recap. State and local politicians shuttered large sections of the economy, picking winners and losers and telling a large part of the population that they were non-essential. Small businesses were targeted, yet relief favored larger companies and was rampant with fraud. Yes, that's one of the things that they keep telling you as we go into this and talk about this, is the fact that well, it's the big corporations are out there, and look at all these profits that Amazon had. Look at all these profits that Walmart turned around, and the oil companies, and all these profits here. And there's an analysis that goes with all of that too. As was mentioned here, small business was targeted and closed almost immediately as soon as we got into this. You couldn't go to the mom and pop store that was competing with the big box store because they had to shut down. They were non-essential. Your local co-op was shut down. But you could go to Walmart. Even going as far as to be able to justify you not being able to go to your local greenhouse and get stuff to garden or seeds or anything else like that. The Walmart was cordoned off. So the only thing that you could go and get was food in some states, like Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer facing an uphill battle that I think she's going to win, but an uphill battle that should not be as close as it should be, given the local politics of Detroit and the rest of Michigan. Heavy Union Michigan. Of course, Amazon and Walmart are going to post record profits after the commie coup. For a year, they were the only ones allowed to be open. Furthermore, and I did some digging into this and started looking at what the record profits were. Now, when you hear people like Bobby Wright come out and tell you that the big oil companies put out this massive record profit compared to a year before, they're usually comparing it out to 2020. Well, a global flood flooded the market with gasoline in 2020, and while most of us who had a brain still took advantage of it and tried to travel, while we had the opportunity to do so, like me, driving from here to DC down to Florida and then back to DC and back to here in June of 2020, most people didn't do that, and that's part of the reason that gas prices were down as far as they were, is because, people weren't driving. People looked at this and said, screw that. I might get the coof if I get out there. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to put gas in my car. Look at me. I'm saving the environment. Now gas demand is back up, and the cash that they're getting off of this. So both they're picking up all the profit that they got off of. They're making up all the profit that they didn't get compared to 2020 when nobody was buying gas. And on top of that, the dollar bills that they're bringing in are worth 15% less than they were at the time of the last profiteering that they're putting out here. They put in place or supported mandates that took away people's livelihoods based on political narrative instead of data and science. They disrupted the learning and development of kids of all ages. Trillions of dollars were transferred directly and indirectly from Main Street to Wall Street. The Federal Reserve was enabled and never held to account for keeping emergency support in place for 20 plus months after the stock market hit all-time highs. And well, it's the same thing too. They came out and said, well, we shut down all your business, but we're going to give you all these stimulus checks. Go out and spend your stimulus check. Buy stuff. Go and get stuff. Which, again, after I found out that I had no choice but to spend the stimulus check, my new gaming rig sitting down here at my knee was a thing where I put some money into big business. This is almost a couple years old at this point, isn't it? Somebody asked Sewell when I built this, because he was on the phone with me. He has actually talked me through it for most of what we did. I think it was shortly after the election, because we got our last stimulus, and that's what it was last stimulus is what built this. But again, you give people, 12, 6, and 14, 3,200, can I not do math? No, I can do math. 2,600 and 600 is 3,200. So you just give away $3,200 to people, but take away their small business competitors, so they have, the only place they can go and spend that $3,200 is at the Walmart. And wonder why these big corporations, these billionaire corporations, got record profits. The government spent trillions of dollars generating historic deficits and exploding the national debt in more than $31 trillion. The inflation that was caused by bad, careless policies now being addressed in ways that are increasing the cost of servicing the national debt, impairing the ability to save, and putting individuals further into debt. The personal savings rate stands at levels not seen since the Great Recession financial crisis. And credit card debt is at the highest levels ever. Which, I mean, for me, I'm actually managing to keep mine low somehow. They inflated housing asset prices, giving cheap debt to corporate buyers, and then increased mortgage rates, putting the American dream out of reach for millions. Yeah, BlackRock, that's one right there. How many properties did BlackRock pick up in major urban areas? Now, around here, where I live, they weren't doing near as much of that, and in fact, in Redacted, where I live, a lot of houses stayed on the market, while places like suburbs of Madison, I was seeing a girl for a little while that lived, I don't want to say where, but it, I guess, kind of does make it important. And even though I'm not going to name her by name, she lived over in a city called Oregon, which is just south of Madison, where the houses that she was looking at in Madison were coming off the market at, I mean, in Madison, most of the houses across the country that were coming off the market by BlackRock were going 10% over asking price. Anything that she looked at was going at 30% over asking price. Again, in the more rural areas, they didn't snap up quite so hard, but up in the urban areas, they're gone, off the market like that. Because of 0% interest rate and the fact that they're buying this up off of taxpayer dollars. Let's see. Now people are seeking second jobs to pay for basic necessities. Up to half of Americans have considered taking a second job per a recent survey. I was on the edge of taking a third job. Back in September, I went down to a local bar and said, hey, can I just work here for a couple nights a week and pick up a little bit extra money to put in the savings? I also went to Wild Wings before I remembered that they don't hire men at Buffalo Wild Wings. The admin and their supporters have taken credit for jobs coming available due to post-pandemic reopening and Social Security cost of living increases that are actually happening because of inflation. They gave a bailout to union pensions, while other Americans' retirement funds lost trillions in value. Yeah. They thwarted economic and national security around energy policy, then burned strategic petroleum reserves for political gains. Which, by the way, that is going to come home to roost to you guys. That's going to be another thing that drives up your gas prices in the next year, is that the responsibility is that oil companies have to go back and refill the strategic reserves. At a loss in some points. So by law, they're required to put gas or oil back into the strategic reserves while still trying to provide oil to make gasoline to send out to the pump. They put out a rule to try to eliminate independent workers and gig work at a time when we don't have enough people in the labor force. They're trying to force working class folks and those who paid for college to shoulder the burden of college degree holders via select debt relief. They earmarked $80 billion in funding to explode the size of the IRS and hire IRS agents to come after middle and working class. They lower the reporting threshold for online transactions to $600 from $20,000 to force middle and working class Americans to run their personal lives like a business and try to extract more fees from them. They rescinded and then took credit for reinstating Trump's insulin pricing rule and took credit for a 2017 law regarding hearing aid pricing. The list goes on. Regardless of what party you identify with, or if you don't identify with one at all, these people need to be held accountable. Your vote is a good first step. No amount of lipstick is going to make this economic pig look pretty. We can only hope that whoever takes over will have the fortitude to enact some serious change. So, a lot of stuff happening with this, and it's the economy when you come right down to it. And I made this diatribe yesterday as we talked about this. One of the big ones one of the big things that I talked about as we went off of this goes down to something that I heard David Ramsey talk about in a commercial on AM radio years ago. Now, you can look at things, you can look at what's happening in your life, and you can say, there's no way out of this. I can't do this, which in 2014, that was the point that I was at. When the injection system in my rusted out 1997 Chevrolet S10 went out, leaving me essentially without a way to get to work, at a point where I was on my way to moving out of Kenosha, because I had been forced to work into $10 an hour without any way to get out of it, because my boss was calling everybody that, or telling everybody that I had applied with that he caught me smoking weed out back, and he hadn't. Allegedly. Still haven't been able to find proof of that, but I've heard rumors of that. Enough rumors that I have a good idea that it happened. Something that I couldn't prove in a court of law, but something where I've heard enough rumors that I can know that it happened. Making $10 an hour, working part-time, because that's what they had reduced me to. If you'd have told me, I'm going to say this right off the bat, because this was in 2014, so that truck sitting outside was a brand new truck at the time. If you'd have told me in 2014 when I was 30 that white pickup truck outside, that white F-150 sitting outside would be sitting out there in my name, I'd have laughed at you. I'd have said there's no way. But as long as you have a roof over your head and food in your belly, you live to fight another day. Now, before we get into the analysis, I will point out what we've been seeing on Twitter, on Facebook, and everywhere else for the last 6 months. The Democrats will try to tell you that this election is about forced birth and destroying gay marriages that already exist. Not to mention preventing new ones from forming, but destroying the ones that already exist. And forcing everybody to go give birth. And we're going into Gilead. And they want to give tax cuts to all their rich buddies, which is not a bad thing, because then they turn around and reinvest that money that they would have paid in taxes. But, we don't talk about that. And they want to initiate rule of law and fascism and turn Ukraine over to Russia, our ally that's not actually our ally. And all of this other stuff that they're going to try to tell you that this election is about. Here is what this election is about. Making sure that you can keep food in your belly and a roof over your head. Those two things are what this election is about. Because everything else that they're going to try to make this election about, we can fight over another day. We can sit there and we can fight over these things later on in life. But if we all starve to death, or we all have to become employees of the state, whichever one comes first, we can't fight these battles. So, it's the economy, stupid. Alright, let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Talking about Mr. Biden. Biden's avuncular, which I was going to look that word up, because I tend to believe I have a very high vocabulary, but that was one that I had never heard before. Relating to an uncle. Wow, that just made that really creepy. Biden's avuncular facade barely hides his anger at the media and the 74 million Americans who voted for the other guy. From Joseph Curl. This is also an op-ed, by the way. Joe Biden is the kind of guy you can imagine yelling at a bunch of rambunctious kids with a shake of his gnarled fist. Get off my lawn, man! Is this my lawn? Where am I? Is this Della? Where's Bo? I want to see Bo right now, man. The president, who turns 80 this month, likes to play the avuncular sage, offering astute aphorisms, but deep down, hidden behind that smiling and soothing facade, is a furious man with little patience for anything. Biden's anger management issues have popped up from time to time over the years. He's been sucking off the government teat since '73, after all, but they've been flaring up far more often of late, so much so that the hyper-liberal Saturday Night Live mocked the president over the weekend. Man, I wish I could play this, but NBC is one of those that will pop you immediately for a half of a second's worth of Saturday Night Live material. They didn't used to be that way either, by the way. You used to be able to get away with it. The goof, which came on Weekend Update, began with a shot of Biden and host Colin Jost, noting that Biden had just given a speech in Detroit. Let me start off with 2 words, Biden opened his speech. Made in America. Biden was then heard criticizing reporters at the White House for shouting questions at him. Questions like, what year is it? And who's the current president? Also, they weren't reporters, they were doctors, Joe said to much laughter. I get it. When SNL is mocking a Democratic president, you know something has gone wrong in the Matrix. But that's just how bad Biden is at everything. Ramblin' Joe was up in New York on Sunday for an 11th hour attempt to save Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul's job as governor. His speech was interrupted by climate protesters, which enraged Biden. No more drilling! Biden snapped at a heckler. There's no more drilling. I haven't formed any new drilling. Which actually is a lie. He has. Not very much. Not enough, but he has. Then he got befuddled when he tried to return to his speech and nearly stumbled off the stage at one point. Oops! Stepping on a... It's black. Anyway, Biden said after he teetered. As Democrats have plunged in the midterm election polls, nearly every pollster predicts a red tsunami on Tuesday, with many saying Republicans take the House in a landslide and likely take back the Senate too. Biden has grown increasingly cantankerous. Biden, who's been hunkering down in his Delaware basement during the campaign season, was asked last month why he hasn't hit the trail for so few candidates. John Fetterman's going to appear with you today in Pennsylvania, but there haven't been many candidates campaigning with you. CBS News reporter Wei Zhang began on October 20th. Biden angrily cut her off, leaning towards the bank of microphones and yelling, "That's not true! There have been 15! Count, kid, count!" That's what Biden said, even though the White House later altered the transcript to say something different and less angry. Yeah, that's 1984 for you. Another reporter got in a question saying, "Mr. President, should there be any restrictions on abortion at all? Any restrictions on abortion at all?" Yes, there should be. What should they be? In Roe versus Wade, man. Read it. He'll get educated. Biden spat. I remember that one. We watched that video. For the record, I covered the White House for a dozen years, and as the fourth estate, that's our job. We ask the president's questions. What's more, Biden has done far fewer press conferences than his predecessors, so reporters have been consigned to yelling questions over the prop wash of the Marine One helicopters. But Biden also mocked the media at the White House meeting with Israeli President Isaac Herzog. The president allowed the press inside before their talk. An old trick by presidents who don't want to discuss the discussion and can just clear out reporters after making a statement. Thank you very much, press. We need you guys to move. Thank you very much, White House wranglers said as they herded out reporters who steadfastly shouted questions. Among the only press in the world that does this. Seriously, Biden said derisively to Herzog. Damn right we are. That's literally the first thing the founders added to the Bill of Rights after they forgot to enshrine freedom of the press in the Constitution. Biden derided the former president's adversarial relationship with the media, but he often does the exact same thing, although often under his breath. Biden responded, "It's totally irrelevant, but I'll answer, okay? If I verified, he complimented me. He thanked me for the immediate response that we had." In July, a reporter asked about reports citing economists saying a recession is more likely than ever. "Not the majority of them are saying that. Come on, don't make things up, man." And it goes on and on and on like that. Biden is angry, and a lot of the snapping and everything that he does off the cuff is, it's a symptom of the dementia that he has, which he clearly does. I've seen, I had a family member, my great-grandma passed away from Alzheimer's, and I do remember at the very end. She lived 5 hours away, so we didn't get to see her that often, but as she was fading out of existence, if you tried to question what it was that she says that she did, she got angry with you, often for absolutely no reason. Couldn't tell what year it was. Thought my sister was my aunt. Which I've seen pictures of that particular aunt at a young age, and that probably wasn't that far of a stretch, honestly. But it is. This is a person who's not fit to hold this office. And it does make me wonder who is actually running the scene. But that's what we have for that. Let's talk about electioneering out of Georgia. From 11 Alive, Cobb County Board of Elections sued by ACLU after over 1,000 absentee ballots were never mailed. From Reeves Jackson, the Cobb County Board of Elections is being sued by the American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia after more than 1,046 ballots were never sent to them. Were never sent in the mail, the ACLU announced on Sunday. The lawsuit was filed in an effort to seek emergency relief so that hundreds of Cobb County voters would be able to cast their ballot with Election Day looming on Tuesday. The ACLU is pushing for ballots to be sent overnight to all the voters who still need their absentee ballots and push back the deadline for these voters from 7 p.m. on Election Day to November 14th. Oh, really? So, you want to wait almost a week to get all the rest of these ballots in? First off, my first question here. You always have the option to walk up to your polling place if you didn't get your ballot. And if you're out of state at the time, well, I do apologize for that. But I've got this feeling with 1,046 of them that that's not actually the case. It might be out-of-state students, etc., but for the most part, no, I don't buy any of this. But you want 7 days to go make sure and find all the ballots that you need? Get all the ballots back that you think you're entitled to? Board of Election officials must send out the ballots within 3 days of processing an application under Georgia law, but the ACLU states that Cobb County officials failed to do so. Data currently shows that 250 of those affected by the issue have voted in person, which actually is also the other aspect of this is if they've already voted in person, what happens then when they get the ballot out of this honk? There's a direct correlation between the state's sweeping anti-voter law, SB 202, and Cobb County's failure to get over 1,000 registered voters their absentee ballots. Rahul Garabadu, the ACLU of Georgia senior voting rights attorney, says the anti-voter law put tremendous pressure on election officials to accomplish a number of responsibilities under a very tight deadline. And in Cobb County, that pressure has resulted in huge error and hundreds of voters at risk of being disenfranchised. I'm on two sides of this right now. First off, if Cobb County did do this, as stated, then that is wrong, and that is bad. That's against the law. But again, the other side of this is you can still vote in person. The pinko pox is over. Absentee voters who did not receive their ballots by mail can vote in person at their assigned precinct on election day. So, that's one side of things. But on the other side, and both of these involve getting ballots back after the fact. After the night's counting is done, and they know exactly how much they have to find. I mean, exactly how many outstanding ballots are still out there and where the results are going to be. From CNN, Better Woman. You know, I don't care for Fetterman. But I think that there was a failed opportunity for Pearl Jam to come back out and modify one of their most popular songs for this campaign. And I've been thinking that ever since I first heard the name Fetterman. And now that it's in your head, especially if you grew up in the 90s, you're thinking about it too. I know you are. Fetterman sues to have mail-in ballots counted even if not signed with a valid date. From Caitlin Polance. Pennsylvania Democratic Senate nominee John Fetterman's campaign has gone to a federal court to try to have Pennsylvania voters mail-in ballots counted if they weren't signed with a valid date. You literally, anything else that you have to sign with a date. I just went and took a PP test yesterday. And I had to sign it with a date. The question of whether mailed ballots with incorrect missing dates can be counted is one of the hottest voting disputes in the pivotal state leading up to Election Day, and a divided Pennsylvania Supreme Court recently ordered counties to refrain from counting mailed ballots with missing or invalid dates on their outer envelopes. But Fetterman and his voters his campaign has aligned with are hoping the federal court will supersede the state court's decision. The date instruction imposes unnecessary hurdles that eligible Pennsylvanians must clear to exercise their most fundamental right, resulting in otherwise valid votes being arbitrarily rejected. An unnecessary hurdle that eligible Pennsylvanians must clear. Do I have a pen on my desk that works? I don't think I do. I was going to show you how easy this is, but I think my red pen here is run dry. I'll try it. Well, it's mostly dry. Look at that undue burden! I just signed my name on the sheet of paper that I usually use to keep down your live chat. Look at that undue burden! It's so burdensome! It's so undue. Look at that. Resulting in otherwise valid votes being arbitrarily rejected without any reciprocal benefit to the Commonwealth. Attorneys for Fetterman and the Democrats wrote in their new lawsuit filed Monday in the U.S. District Court of the Western District of Pennsylvania. Dude, if you don't know that when you sign a legal document, you have to date it. When it says date right there, you should not be holding a ballot. And I've been saying that a lot for the past few days. Especially with the, well, Twitter's going to allow misinformation, dangerous misinformation on the website, right as we're going into a midterm election. Number one, at this point in the election, I think most people have decided who they're going to vote for. But even if they haven't, if you can't take the time to verify information that's presented to you on your own, you have no business holding a ballot. You have no business with that. The date on a mail ballot envelope thus has no bearing on a voter's qualification and serves no purpose other than to erect barriers to qualified voters exercising their fundamental constitutional right to vote. This unnecessary impediment violates the Civil Rights Act and the First and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Where does it violate the First Amendment? Republicans have advocated for strict rules around mailed-in voting that would force ballots with missing information to be rejected. The Fetterman campaign is joined in its lawsuit by the Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So, yeah, they're going to go back and try to get all these ballots without dates counted. Some LA news. And by the way, Chris Pratt is also in the same boat for what we're about to talk about with Katy Perry. I think this is the first time I've talked about Katy Perry on this show. Who looked much, much better with dark hair, by the way. I might be biased by that. Because I typically have a weakness for girls with dark hair and light-colored eyes. A hot mess. Superstar Katy Perry confirms she's voting for Rick Caruso in LA. From Katie Jerkovich. Superstar Katy Perry let her millions of followers know on Monday that she was voting for billionaire Democrat Rick Caruso for mayor of Los Angeles because the city is a hot mess and more. The 38-year-old pop singer, which, yes, she is the same age as I am, shared several photos and a clip on Instagram with her 178 million followers after she officially cast a vote for Caruso, a former Republican, over Democrat Rep. Karen Bass. And I did look that up before. The Wikipedia article that I have next up here is, because I didn't know what the big deal was for voting for Rick Caruso, because I didn't think that a Republican could get through the jungle primary in Los Angeles. And it turns out that, yes, he's run as a Republican and independent, but is now running as a Democrat. I'm voting for a myriad of reasons, see the news, but in particular because LA is a hot mess, Perry explained. Let's go Caruso. Yes to measure 28. Yes to measure 1. Do you, but just use your vote, okay? In two of the photos, the American Idol judge took a selfie in the polling booth, giving a thumbs up to the billionaire. In another snap, we see the firework hitmaker striking a celebratory pose outside the polling location. And in a final video, we see Perry giving a thumbs up to a message on the screen that read, "Thanks for voting. Congratulations, you have cast your ballot on the November 8th, 2022 general election. Don't forget your sticker on the way out." The Teenage Dream star joined the other stars in voting for Caruso, like actor Chris Pratt, who shared with his 39.4 million followers that he's lived in LA for 20 years and has witnessed the decline as crime and homelessness soar. The Daily Wire previously reported. I don't normally support political candidates, he added, but in this election there's too much to lose. If you're an LA voter, I urge you to vote for Rick Caruso. He's a builder. The Guardians of the Galaxy star continued. He knows how to get crap done. He's the guy for our city. Rick Caruso for LA mayor. Snoop and Gwyneth Paltrow have also spoken out and encouraged their followers to vote for Caruso. And by the way, this has angered a lot of the Democratic base, who seems to think that machine politician Karen Bass should be the one out there. Let's listen to Mrs. Paltrow and see what it is she has to say about this.
Hi, I'm Gwyneth Paltrow, and
Hi.
I'm a native Angelino. I was born here, and I've spent much of my life in this amazing city that I love very much. I think we need to be honest with ourselves that LA is experiencing a tough time right now, and I think we really need a leader who can come in and has the strength to solve some really tough problems. So that is why I am endorsing my old friend Rick Caruso for mayor. Rick is an amazing human being. He's a man of integrity and great character, and I think he can really get our city back on track. I hope you will join me in supporting Rick. Please go to carusocan.com. You can donate, you can read more about Rick and his amazing plans to help our city. We've got to come together and help LA reach its potential.
So there you go. Gwyneth Paltrow telling you to vote for a former Republican who's now running as a Democrat. Do you think that was enough to push you over the edge? Do you think Ricky's going to get it? You think he's got it? And yes, just a look on for this. Billionaire, he's the founder and former chief executive officer of Caruso, an American real estate company. He's the chair of the board of trustees at the University of Southern California and was previously the president of the LA Police Commission and a member of the board of water and power commissioners. Caruso is running as a Democrat in the 2022 LA mayor election. He was previously registered as a nonpartisan, and before that he was a Republican. And I think that's a lot of where people think that he shouldn't have the ability to do this versus Karen Bass. From the Blaze. Democracy doomsdayism. Rep. Clyburn repeats his usual election cycle claim that the Democratic Party's failure means the end of democracy. Based. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say that out loud. From Joseph McKinnon. Every election cycle, House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn of South Carolina becomes acutely aware that Democrats' failure to hold on to power might mean the end of democracy. He says democracy, but he means our hegemony. On schedule, Clyburn has announced that democracy will be ended if Democrats do not secure a resounding victory on Tuesday. Clyburn, the third highest-ranked Democrat in the House, previously stated that a Republican victory would be tantamount to the end of the world. Over the weekend, Clyburn told Fox News Sunday that he didn't mean to suggest a world-ending apocalypse was imminent, but rather that democracy will be ending. The world would continue to exist. Let's listen.
It could very well be the end of the world.
Okay, so are you asking voters to set aside what they feel about the economy? Because the Wall Street Journal, Kimberly Strassel has this piece. Voters have sat through this apocalyptic movie many times now and know its anticlimactic ending. Besides, they're busy searching for spare change to cover their rising grocery bill. So set aside the economy, worries about crime, which are at the top of all of voter polls about what they're worried about, and instead vote for you or the world is ending?
Nobody's saying the world is ended.
You did say there, though, it could be the end of the world.
No, democracy will be ended. The world will continue to exist. The world was here before Hitler. The world was here after Hitler. That's what we're saying. No, the world will not end. The kind of world we have, the kind of country we have, we've got to decide how do we want to exist in this world. And that's what we're talking about. This hyperbole is not a part of what we are saying here. We're talking about what kind of country we have and what kind of world we have.
Okay, Congressman, just to be clear, though, I want to read your quote. It says, but losing this democracy could very well be the end of the world. That's a direct quote from you.
End of the world? Come on.
It's been a fun one. I posted this out on Twitter the other day, and I know it's getting late at this point, but if you are on Twitter for whatever reason and you want to go back and have some fun, every time one of these talking heads that gets paid to go back and spam your feed and then say that there's too much money in politics, but when they get paid to spam your feed and they say, democracy is on the ballot, go back and remind them that they mean their hegemony is on the ballot. We could lose our democracy. No, you could lose your hegemony. An Ohio Democrat comes out against Tim Ryan and calls him a fraud. From Tim H.J. Narazi. An elected Democrat official in Ohio penned an op-ed Friday calling Democrat senatorial candidate Tim Ryan a fraud. The op-ed, published in the Cincinnati Enquirer, was written by Hamilton County Auditor Dusty Rhodes, a proud, lifelong Democrat who holds elected office in the state. In the essay, Rhodes accuses Ryan of being a fraud and urges all voters, Democrats, Republicans, and otherwise, not to vote for him. It's because I love my state so much that I'm sounding the alarm about my party's nominee for U.S. Senate. The op-ed reads, Tim Ryan is a fraud who must be defeated. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat like me, Ryan does not deserve your vote. Ryan currently represents the Buckeye State's 13th Congressional District in the House and is looking to succeed retiring GOP Senator Rob Portman. He has attempted to distance himself from the party leaders and portray himself as a moderate in the Ohio Senate race against J.D. Vance, his Republican challenger. I think Vance has got it walking away, by the way. Rhodes rebuffed any claims of Ryan being an independent in his public service, saying the lawmaker is 100% lockstep with Democratic Party leaders. Here's the truth. Tim Ryan is not who he says he is. He votes in 100% lockstep with Pelosi and Biden in Congress. At every opportunity, he follows the orders of the D.C. establishment. That's the path of least resistance that far too many of our leaders fall into. We all deserve better. The op-ed went on to pivot towards the Democrat Party as a whole, criticizing Speaker Pelosi and President Biden alongside far too many Democrats. That's spicy. Well, we'll see what happens with that. That's harsh, though. When you're losing these people. I want to do this one first, before we get into the call to activism one. I meant to change that around because I caught that while we were on the title card, but forgot to. From Politico. 6 Election Day security threats to watch for on Election Day. Let's see, it's only the 2020 election that could never be hacked and nothing bad could happen for. All the rest of them, I mean, this could be the end of democracy, you guys. Kind of almost sounds like they know that they're going to get hammered and they're circling the wagons. From Eric Geller. The midterms face a bevy of digital threats, from stolen Twitter accounts to hacked election websites that could spark chaos, confusion, and unrest that last long after the polls close. The 2020 presidential election was rife with allegations of voting machine hacks that were later debunked. I'm gonna debunk! And it's Politico, of course, so even though when they say something mean about President Biden, all the usual suspects come out and say, it's a right-wing rag. No, it's very, very left-leaning. Yet there are real risks that hackers could tunnel into the voting equipment and other election infrastructure to try to undermine Tuesday's vote. So what changed in 2 years? That's my big question here. The U.S. has many safeguards protecting voting equipment, so any actual hack would probably be localized, quickly detected, and unlikely to affect final results. But as 2020 showed, even an attempt to change votes or the mere allegations of tampering could undermine faith in the outcome. The U.S. officials charged with protecting election security say they're watching for threats from multiple groups and countries in the recent months. It's Russia! Social media companies and cybersecurity researchers have identified Chinese influence operations aimed at elections. Yes, it's called TikTok. More attention to securing voting systems hasn't eliminated critical technical and human threats to our elections, said Matthew Weil, Executive Director of the Bipartisan Policy Center's Democracy Program, and this cycle is practice for 2024. Which, again, almost kind of tells me that they're going to yell fraud and illegal activity all through 2024 as well. Because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I think they're going to get spanked then, too. The federal government has worked since 2016 to improve the coordination with state and local officials on everything from fixing digital vulnerabilities to promoting trusted sources of information. Biden admin officials say there's one reason that they've seen less foreign interference than in 2016. Honk honk. But as CISA Director Jen Easterly, whose agency leads federal election security efforts, told reporters recently, the current election threat environment is more complex than it's ever been. She cited the ways that multiple different threats, from cyber attacks to disinformation to the harassment of election officials, are overlapping, and we will be talking about the harassment of election officials and electors and voters in the next series of 4 articles, 1 tweet and 3 articles. Here are the threats to watch for as the final votes of the midterms are cast. Mis and disinformation. We're going to just gloss over these. But, Russia stoked divisions in 2016. It was the Russians, it was the Chinese, it was everybody else. And what did I say before? And Silent Caster actually called me out and said democracy involves the stupid. That's why we're a republic. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you are not smart enough to verify what you saw on social media before you take it as gospel, you're not smart enough to hold a ballot. Plain and simple. Crashing election office and campaign websites. Hackers have one relatively low-tech tool for knocking campaigns off balance and disrupting voters' access to reliable election information, forcing websites to crash using automated tools that simulate massive floods of people visiting those sites. A few major tech companies, including Cloudflare and Google, offer free protection against these DDoS attacks to election officials and political campaigns, but many websites remain unprotected. Honk honk. A Russian DDoS recently knocked several state government websites offline, although those attacks did not specifically target election sites. I doubt it was Russians as well, but, they're going to tell you that it is. Campaign social media account hijacking. Hackers could take over candidates or campaign social media accounts on election day and make inflammatory comments designed to alienate voters or spread false information about how or when to vote. These impersonation schemes could fuel distrust about the election process and knock off campaigns in the home stretch of the contest. Once again, if you don't go back, and this is the disinformation thing all over again, if you don't have the ability to go back and verify the information that's presented to you, you shouldn't be holding a ballot. Plain and simple. The specter of targeted account hijacking isn't theoretical. Twitter already experienced a massive hack in July of 2020 in which a teenager took over accounts belonging to politicians, business leaders, and other celebrities, including then-candidate Joe Biden. And now Twitter owner Elon Musk's initiation of mass layoffs has sparked fears that the cuts could hit the company's security team. Cyber attacks on voter registration database. States have spent years upgrading the security of their voter registration databases, which form the bedrock of a well-functioning election system, but no technology is perfectly secure, and vulnerabilities likely remain in some states' networks. Russian hackers breached Illinois' voter database in 2016, which probably led to Trump winning. Let's be frank. I mean, Hillary took Illinois, walking away by double-digit points, but that's probably what led to Trump's victory, is the hack of a deep, deep blue state. Hackers with access to voter registration data could sow chaos in 2 ways: by tampering with voter data. They could make it more difficult or time-consuming for poll workers to check in voters at polling places, and by stealing voter data, hackers could engage in targeted harassment, like we're going to read about in the next article. And the next one, targeted voter harassment. The relatively novel threat represents an evolution of how foreign governments are using hacking campaigns to meddle in U.S. elections. After stealing voter records from a state election database in 2020, Iranian operatives threatened those voters with unspecified consequences if they didn't vote to re-elect then-President Trump. Yeah, I'm sure that didn't happen. The messages, which contained false allegations of vulnerabilities in election technology, were designed to look like they came from the Pride Boys, a right-wing extremist group that's just mysteriously shows up within 20 minutes of something happening that requires a riot. And mysteriously, by the way, have you noticed that you haven't heard very much about the Pride Boys in the last 2 years? The U.S. government quickly linked Tehran to the emails, warned election officials about them, and disclosed the campaign publicly. Federal prosecutors subsequently indicted 2 Iranian men for the operation. And the last one, wireless modems enabling hacks of voting machines or vote tallies, which I was told last year and the year before was completely impossible. That this couldn't be done. That wireless modems couldn't be tampered with, and everything was local, and the machines aren't even connected to the internet anyway. A lot of this sounds like the fact that they're coming out here and trying to make excuses for the fact that they're going to get spanked. Alright, let's talk about the DOJ putting their fingers on the scale. Starting with our friends over at Call to Activism! Nobody liked my comment on this either, by the way. That makes me sad. But Call to Activism says, "This is huge! Huge! The Justice Department announces it will send election monitors to 64 jurisdictions in 24 states." Which we have the list, by the way. "For tomorrow's election to make sure no civil rights violations are taking place. Especially targeting minority voters. Merrick Garland is on the job." That right there should terrify you, just those words in and of themselves. Heavily partisan, Merrick Garland with an axe to grind against the Republican Party is on the job. Doesn't that make you feel more secure? To which I pointed out, so instead of armed Navy SEALs intimidating voters, it'll be armed federal agents intimidating voters. Got it. There were a couple others on this that I commented on. Here's, the typical one that they put out here. Here's some extra help. Voter protection hotlines, voting's your right as a citizen. If an alleged poll watcher tries to impede you at the voting booth, tell him to kindly step out of the way, take his picture with a cell phone, and call the FBI. And my question there is, who do you call when the FBI is the group that's intimidating you? Ken Warren asked the question, are monitors passive observers and recorders, or can they also intervene and arrest individuals involved in voter intimidation in the violation of the federal law? Which I also replied, they are the voter intimidation. If you're going to vote, and I know for me, this doesn't affect my polling place, because I live in the middle of nowhere, which I prefer, by the way. So there's not going to be an FBI agent at my polling place. However, how are you going to feel if you want to vote against the party and you know that Merrick Garland is doing this, and you see a large group of people standing outside with Ray-Bans and earpieces and 45s strapped to their hips? And I like this one too. I didn't comment on this one, but as we see the real consequences of voter intimidation by the GOP, the news that Merrick Garland is working to protect voters is the most welcome. Only one side is wearing tactical gear and trying to intimidate voters. Well, it seems that now they're sending somebody else out, armed, possibly not in tactical gear, but armed, and trying to intimidate voters. And by the way, why is homie wearing a mask? This screams false flag. These gravy seals out there don't wear masks. Personal rights and stuff like that. And this, of course, linking directly to the DOJ's website. Public Affairs for immediate release. Justice Department to monitor polls in 24 states for compliance with federal voting rights laws. The DOJ announced today its plans to monitor compliance with federal voting rights laws in 64 jurisdictions in 24 states in the November 8, 2022 general election. Since the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 65, the Civil Rights Division has regularly monitored elections in the field in jurisdictions around the country to protect the rights of voters. The Civil Rights Division will also take complaints from the public nationwide regarding how possible voting violations of federal voting rights laws through its call center. The Civil Rights Division enforces the federal voting rights laws that protects the rights of all citizens to access the ballot. I'm going to fly through this here, but here are the 64 jurisdictions. In order. Let's take a breath and let's go. City of Bethel, Alaska. Dillingham Census Area, Alaska. Kusilvac Census Area, Alaska. Sitka City, Borough, Alaska. Maricopa County, where we potentially saw maybe a little bit of Hong Kong in 2020. Maricopa County, Arizona. Navajo County, Arizona. Pima County, Arizona. Pinal County, Arizona. Yavapai County, Arizona. And Newton County, Arkansas. So, a few of them in heavily populous counties in Arizona. Newton County, Arkansas. LA County, California. Surprise, surprise. I'm not surprised there. What do we have here? The most populous Democratic strongholds, one of which is turning in Florida, Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and no, that's just the three right there. Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. Also, Sonoma County, California, missed that one. In Georgia, Cobb County, Atlanta, Fulton County, also Atlanta. Gwinnett County, I don't know that one. In Mass, Town of Clinton, City of Everett, City of Fitchburg, City of Leominster, City of Malden. So at that point you're starting to get into inner city Boston. City of Methuen, City of Randolph, City of Salem, all in Massachusetts, all major urban areas. Prince George's County in Maryland, Baltimore. City of Detroit, Michigan, City of Flint, Michigan, City of Grand Rapids, Michigan, City of Pontiac, Michigan, City of Southfield, Michigan. Three of which I know of are major Democrat strongholds, and I think Pontiac is as well. Southfield I'm not familiar with. Minneapolis, and then Hennepin County, also encompassing Minneapolis and Minnesota. Ramsey County, Minnesota. Don't know that one. Cole County, Missouri. I have no idea what that one is, but I've got this feeling that if I looked it up, it encompasses St. Louis. Alamance County, North Carolina. Columbus County, North Carolina. Harnett County, North Carolina. Mecklenburg City, or County rather, North Carolina. Wayne County, North Carolina. Not familiar with any of those. Middlesex, New Jersey. Bernalillo, New Mexico. San Juan, New Mexico. Not familiar with any of those three. Down in Nevada, Clark County, Vegas, Washoe County, Queens County, New York, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, Cleveland, Berks County, Pennsylvania, Center County, Pennsylvania, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia County, which is probably Philadelphia. But again, the rest of these I'm not familiar with. The city of Pawtucket in Rhode Island. Horry County, South Carolina. Dallas County, Texas. Harris County, Texas. Waller County, Texas. Dallas, Houston, and El Paso. San Juan County, Utah. City of Manassas, Virginia. City of Manassas Park, Virginia, Prince William County, Virginia, which is DC area, I believe, all three of those. I'd have to fact check myself on that. And then finally, what I'm most familiar with, City of Milwaukee, where they accidentally, in the 2018 gubernatorial election, found 3,000 ballots in a trunk of a car at the airport with a gluing error on them. And the city of Racine, its close neighbor. Thank you to our resident Michigander for telling me where what Southfield is. It's a heavily Dem suburb. I don't know what it's a suburb of, but it is a heavily Dem suburb, according to somebody who grew up there. So these are all the places where the FBI, the DOJ, is going to have an armed presence on site. From Fox 10. 2022 election DOJ to monitor polls in 5 Arizona counties for compliance with voting rights laws. From Fox 10 staff. The DOJ will send monitors to 24 states in an effort to ensure compliance with federal voting rights laws in Tuesday's elections. Yeah, we just went over a long and boring statistical list. The action, which occurs regularly on Election Day, comes as civil rights groups and the federal government have raised the alarm over potential voter intimidation at some polling places and ballot boxes. Why are we announcing it if this happens all the time? Are you possibly hoping to get a firefight going in one of these places? The 64 jurisdiction where federal monitors, typically lawyers with the Department of Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office across the U.S. are going to include Maricopa, where there have been reports of people watching ballot boxes, sometimes armed or wearing ballistic vests. The DOJ also announced it would be sending monitors to Cole County, Missouri, where local election officials have said they would block the monitors. Since the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Civil Rights Division has regularly monitored the elections in the field in jurisdictions around the country to protect the rights of voters. Well, that would be outside of your purview per Article 2 of the Constitution, which puts the enforcement of the laws and the regulation of the system squarely in the hands of states. The 5 Arizona counties were listed: Maricopa, Navajo, Pima, Pinal, and Yavapai. Apparently somebody won the Powerball, too. Wasn't me, I didn't play. And another going on with this from Axios as well. We'll gloss over this one real quick. As they try to gaslight you and tell you this is normal, this happens all the time, just don't worry about it, pleb. The DOJ announced Monday it will monitor polls in 24 states for compliance with federal voting rights laws during the November 8th midterm. Any reports of violence, threats of violence, or intimidation should be reported to local authorities first, and then the DOJ, the department said. You know, when I see something like this actually kind of makes me want to go over to Milwaukee and Racine and find out what precincts that they're doing this in. Milwaukee I might not be so familiar with, but I kind of have an idea where they're going to be doing it. It's going to be north of Lincoln. I've kind of got an idea that that's where that's all going to be. But Racine, I think I know which precincts that would be too. Go in there and call the local authorities on the DOJ intimidating voters at the ballot box. I got this feeling that I've got this feeling I'd be on a list somewhere that I'm probably already on anyway, if I did that. U.S. election officials are worried about efforts to disrupt the 2022 midterm elections, including voter intimidation, the spread of misinformation, and threats against poll workers. In 2 separate incidences in Colorado and Pennsylvania, election deniers have signed on to work as poll watchers. In Arizona, the Maricopa County Elections Office recorded at least 140 threats against election workers between July 11th and August 11th of this year. Axios' Jacob Knutson reports. Mary McCord, executive director of the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection, told Axios, a Democrat nonprofit by the way, that the attacks and threats during the midterms are from a very ground-up, localized efforts. We've seen a GOP candidate in Idaho have an effigy hung in his yard, she told Axios. We've seen a Democrat candidate in eastern Washington be shot with a BB gun while putting up signs. With a BB gun, you'd have to actually show me malice. You really would. If he got hit with a .22, I would say, okay, hang the person that shot at him. But with a BB gun, you're going to actually have to show me malice on that one. You think it's Helton that won the $1.9 billion? That'd be awesome, actually. So if you're in one of these 64 districts that we just read out dryly and quickly, just remember there's going to be a Fed there watching you to make sure you vote the right way. How is this not voter intimidation? As nakedly partisan as the DOJ has been in this first congressional term, how is this not intimidation? Not to mention, again, they don't have jurisdiction in this area. I don't know. All right, let's talk. Let's talk about something else in the culture war here. From Fox News Detroit. Student makes anti-Prop 3 announcement at Ann Arbor High School after father sues over free speech. From Jessica Dupnack and Amber Ainsworth. After Skyline High School declined to let a student make an announcement against Prop 3, a ballot proposal that would add abortion rights to the Michigan Constitution, the teen's father sued. It took a lot of courage on behalf of the student because the student has been fighting the admin and no one was fighting the administration. The family's attorney, Richard Thompson, said. A temporary injunction granted by a judge allowed the unnamed student, who is the president of the school's Republican Club, to make the announcement over this public address system. At the Ann Arbor school, the student said to vote no on Prop 3 and offered contact information for the Republican Club to learn more about how to protect the health of women and children. I want to look at something here. Because, and I should have looked at this when I was looking for things off this, but I want to see if this is a public school. I'm actually opposed to this. That's Washington. That's not Michigan. If this is a private school, I have no beef with this whatsoever. I think that's here. I see a Skyline school in southern Wisconsin here. I don't know where that is. No, this is a public school. So actually, even though this is a point of free speech, they are using an official government channel to make a sway one way or the other. I'm against this, actually, as much as I agree with the message. Because that is them putting the finger on the scale one way or the other on a public access as a government entity. Also on Monday, the day before Election Day, a group of about 100 students staged a walkout where they led a march around the school, then returned to class. Judge Paul Borman said the school couldn't allow a walkout, but not allow the public address message. Actually, yes, you can. The announcement was denied because of the political nature. We felt it was a constitutional violation of free speech, Thompson said. Well, you're a government agency. You don't have a constitutional protection of free speech. We found that throughout the years, Skyline has been promoting all kinds of liberal ideas. Also a problem, by the way. The school said it was not in line with their policy of using district resources to address a ballot proposal. Superintendent Justice Kerr Swift released a statement that read in part, "We will continue to vigorously defend this case in court so that clarity in the district process in the future situations is consistent with the Michigan Campaign Finance Act and other laws, ensuring the district maintains a viewpoint-neutral position without advocacy on ballot proposals." Yeah, I don't think that you should have been wading into this, but in the same time, I'm sure that at some point there was an announcement saying vote yes on Prop 3 that the admin allowed, which they shouldn't have done that either. This is a private school, it would be a completely different thing. That's what I wanted. That's why I went over here and checked, because I wanted to see if this was a public or a private school, and this is a public school. The one here in Wisconsin is a private school, apparently. I mean, it's based that there are students, Gen Z, that are all for vote no on Prop 3, and I don't even know what Prop 3 is. Section 3, Michigan. Let's find that out too. Proposal 3, I'm sorry. Reproductive Freedom for All petition. Let's get this over here. Proposal 22.3 would amend the state constitution to provide that every individual has a right to reproductive freedom, including the right to make and carry out pregnancy-related decisions, such as those concerning prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion, miscarriage management, and infertility care. The state could not discriminate in enforcing that right, and it could only deny or infringe that right if advancing, in the least restrictive way, a compelling state interest in the health of individuals seeking care. The state could regulate abortion after the fetus is viable, but it could not, under any circumstances, prohibit an abortion that is medically indicated to protect life, physical health, or mental health of the pregnant individual. Finally, the state could not prosecute or penalize an individual based on the actual potential, alleged, or perceived outcomes of the individual's pregnancy, and could not prosecute or penalize a person for assisting a pregnant individual with their voluntary consent to exercise the right to reproductive freedom described above. Well, this whole proposition is crap to begin with, because you don't have a right to have an abortion because somebody else has to provide that for you. You have the right to seek an abortion as the pursuit of happiness. You don't have the right to be successful in doing so. So, and again, it's kind of based that they want to stand in the way of this, but they should not be doing so using a public platform, a public school. The Twitter drama continues from Deadline. Kathy Griffin defies Twitter suspension and returns under her deceased mother's account. Elon Musk replies, "Isn't that kind of ghoulish, by the way?" From Armando Tinoco. Kathy Griffin was suspended from Twitter, but found a way to return to the digital platform using her deceased mother's account. Free Kathy was the hashtag that was tweeted under Maggie Griffin's Twitter account, which hadn't been active since 2019, when the comedian was asking for help after being hacked on Instagram and Facebook. Griffin was banned from Twitter after she changed her display name to Elon Musk, violating the terms of service surrounding the impersonating someone. In a follow-up tweet, Griffin replied to Musk after he said that Going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended. The comedian then replied, "I'm back from the grave to say hashtag free Kathy, hashtag tip it. Are you kidding?" And I mean, you could see in the screenshot too, she also changed the name to Elon Musk and put the same picture up that he had. That is ghoulish. That is beyond. Dude. There are ways that I would go to make a point, and I know people who have dozens of alt accounts, I'm not going to name names, that have gone through to either see who's blocked that person or any other number of things to do. But they're all either made up people or people who are living in that one particular person's instance. This is ghoulish. We'll put the Twitter TOS aside on ban evasion for just a sec. This is ghoulish. I mean, if you're gonna ban evade, just make a new one that says Kathy Griffin 1 or something. I know people that can teach you how to use a Google voice number to go make a new Twitter account. Carrie Swisher says, "The peasants have spoken. Free Kathy. To the Bastille!" Apologize in advance for all the comments you're going to have to read about how ugly I am. And they're probably going to throw you in here too. Oh, by the way, this is KGM tweeted from my dead mother's account. She would not mind. Hashtag free Kathy. Wow. Some more from The View. Some speech is not okay, free speech. Whoopi loses it over Elon Musk vows to quit Twitter. It's not LAX. You don't have to announce your departure. Whoopi Goldberg went off the rails during Monday's broadcast of The View, vowing to leave Twitter because Elon Musk has refused to continue to censor the voices she would rather not be exposed to on the platform. Apparently she cannot find the block button. Goldberg joined her co-hosts on the ABC Midday Talk Show to discuss the state of Twitter after 1 week with Musk at the helm, and she complained that the same free speech protection she enjoys should not be available to just everybody. Nicholas Spondacaro tweets us out with Whoopi declaring that she's sick of the Twitter. She's getting off Twitter tonight despite no changes to Twitter's TOS policies, just equal enforcement. She claims it's a mess now.
It has been a little over a week since Elon Musk took over Twitter, and the place it's a mess. He's already called back some of the workforce he fired a few days ago. He's putting his $8 charge for blue check verification on hold. First it was going to be $20, now it's going to be $8. He also suspended Kathy Griffin for impersonating him on a parody account, which has started a free Kathy hashtag to trend. I mean, I'm getting off. I'm getting off today because I just feel like, you know, it's so messy, and I'm tired of now having had certain kinds of attitudes blocked, and now they're back on. And I'm going to get out, and if it settles down and I feel more comfortable, maybe I'll come back. But as of tonight, I'm done with Twitter.
Okay? These people aren't going to go away from Twitter either. Like, they'll go and work on, and they'll be on Tribal or something else like that, but they're not going to be permanently gone. I can tell you that with varying degrees of certainty, because they're narcissists. That's why they're acting to begin with. That's why they're on TV to begin with. I'm a narcissist. I'm on Twitter. I think everybody should be following me and see what it is that I have to say. That's why I never block anybody. Well, that and the fact that I can brag about the fact that I have nobody blocked. But, I mean, and I'll mute people out there, but everybody should have access to what it is that I have to say. Everybody should be able to see it. Now, whether they scream into the void about it, or just come out here and say, hey, I like what you say, I'll put a like on there. It doesn't matter. But these people aren't going away. They think they are, and they'll go back and threaten it because that'll make the advertisers want to go back and pull back out of it. But one of the questions, and we've got a little bit more off this. Navarro claims to be a Republican, but has repeatedly advocated for a federal crackdown on Twitter because Elon Musk uses Twitter. And Sonny demands people vote for Dems so the Senate can undo 230 so they can crack down on Twitter and Elon Musk. On both of these at this point, it's... Number one, they're trying to change the rules because they're not winning anymore, because they're not winning with the American people and the hearts and minds of the American people. And I completely forget where I'm going with that. Let's listen to Navarro.
But, you know, the European Union actually passed a law that I think is very relevant, and I think we're way behind the curve.
Yeah.
The European Union passed a law that's a landmark law that would force Facebook, YouTube, and other internet services to combat misinformation, disclose how their services amplify divisive comments, and stop targeting online ads based on a person's ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation. And I think, you know,
we've been asking for this.
I don't know why. You know, I think it's time that the U.S. government take a look at this, because in the same way that we are regulated by the FCC, that radio stations are regulated, frankly, a place like Twitter has far more reach and is far more dangerous. And as far as Elon Musk, I don't even understand how this guy can run Twitter when he can't even get himself off Twitter. He is there causing drama on a daily basis. But he's tweeting and tweeting and tweeting and getting into
Senate race is so important
because
the community.
And the Senate race, as Hostin has to say.
The Senate race is so important because the Communications Act, which basically allows this to happen, I think it's Section 230, it allows, you know, protection of social media as
under
just
freedom
platforms.
Of speech, under the freedom.
Well, they just say that they're third-party platforms. They're not the ones that are putting it out there. And that can only change by legislation. And if the Republicans rule the Senate,
Section 230 is a little fraught, though. It's a bit challenging because if you treat it like a publication, then that means they're liable for any crazy thing someone posts. Which
well, it is a publication.
There is a way to craft it.
There's a way to craft
it. They keep
but
saying that it's free speech, and some speech is not all speech is not free speech. Some speech is not okay free speech. So everybody has to agree on that. But if people keep saying, "Well, you heard my free speech," it's going to be a problem. But you know what? This is our problem. But it ain't my problem today because I'm out. We'll be right back.
Bye. And the thing with free speech, it's... First off, I said this before and I say this again. I'm going to need to actually see some proof of all these nasty things that are being said all over Twitter, because I have yet to see any proof of that. I keep hearing about it, but nobody shows me a screenshot. Nobody's got a link to a tweet. Nobody's got a quote tweet of any of these nasty things, the N-word, the F-word, or anything else like that. Nobody's showing me any of that stuff. All I'm supposed to do is sit here and accept the fact that this is happening and that it's gone up 500%. Which might be 6 tweets. All right, let's talk Pelosi, because we didn't get to this yesterday. Minutes passed before Capitol Police reviewed footage in Pelosi home break-in, reports say. I saw somebody on Twitter pose the question of, do we have any proof that this actually even happened? And I don't know that we did. I mean, the dude did cop to it, so we could take that as a confession, whether it's an actual confession or a coerced confession. I don't know, but the dude copped to it. There's that. From Rachel Looker. Who's watching? You know who's watching? The Daily Wire is watching. Capitol Police security camera footage that captured the violent break-in at House Speaker Pelosi's home before the assault of her husband was not immediately reviewed or looked at by Capitol Police, reports say. Citing a person familiar with the matter, unnamed as always, the New York Times, a former newspaper, reported Wednesday that minutes passed before an officer reviewed the footage of the break-in at the Pelosi residence. When the Capitol Police became aware of the attack, Pelosi's husband Paul had already called 911 and San Francisco police officers were on the scene. This doesn't seem like this is that big of a scandal. You know, the big thing with this is you should probably go and make sure that the gentleman who just got bashed in the head with a hammer is already at the hospital before you start talking about the security footage. Stabilize your victim first. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, previously reported that Capitol Police were not monitoring the real-time feed during the break-in and assault of Paul Pelosi. The Capitol Police camera caught a man breaking a glass panel to enter the Pelosi's home. 3 people familiar with the matter, with how Capitol Police learned of the break-in, told the Washington Post. Is there seriously a person whose job it is to sit down and watch the Pelosi home 24/7? And by the way, how do we know that that person is not sitting there playing Candy Crush on his phone? The hammer-wielding attacker violently assaulted Paul inside the family's San Francisco home last Friday and was targeting the longtime California lawmaker who was in Washington, D.C. The suspect, David Pape, was arrested in the early morning Friday break-in. He called out, "Where's Nancy?" when entering the Pelosi home before attacking Paul Pelosi. And everything about this thing continues to look like it was staged at the highest levels. NPC News on Paul Pelosi. The front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. He did not declare an emergency or try to leave his home, instead began walking several feet back towards the assailant and away from the police. I have not pre-listened to this video, so everything that's in this is going to be a surprise to me.
Craig, good morning. When officers arrived here at the Pelosi home exactly a week ago today, they initially didn't have any idea exactly what was going on. They knew they had a high priority call on their hand. What was unclear, what was happening inside the property just behind me.
This morning, Paul Pelosi is home, back at the house that became a crime scene a week ago today. NBC News learning new details about the moments police arrived. Sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high-priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. It's unclear if the 82-year-old was already injured or what his mental state was, say sources. According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good. But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. After tackling the suspect, officers rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying in a pool of blood.
What we do know is he brutally attacked Mr. Pelosi and attempted to kill him.
After spending several days in the ICU, Pelosi, who is recovering from a fractured skull and serious injuries to his arm and hand, is now home, where Capitol Police remain on alert. Investigators have previously said Pelosi did not know DePape when the 42-year-old broke into his home. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
Fear takes over. Fear freezes people.
This morning, the 82-year-old lucky to be alive after an intruder nearly killed him in his own home.
Law enforcement officials tell us the bottom line here is this was a terrifying situation. We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived. Officials who were investigating this matter would not go into further details about these new details. Craig, back to you.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, though. He is lucky to be alive. Miguel Amelguer for us. Miguel, thank you.
And again, so much more of this doesn't make sense. My heart says, so Paul goes to the bathroom to call the cops and on his friend, then goes back to the door. The doorbell rings and Paul goes and answers the door. And then casually walks back to his friend. The friend realizes he's been set up. Yeah, I have a lot of questions about this still to this day. And the police story changes every day. From CNN. First on CNN, members of Pelosi family to hear 911 call and see the body cam footage. The rest of us won't get to see it, but members of the family will. Members of the Pelosi family are expected to be able to hear audio from the 911 call Paul Pelosi placed to police and see body cam footage of officers who responded to his house the night he was attacked, a source familiar with the matter told CNN. You won't get to see it. You just have to accept that this was a dangerous mega threat to democracy. Pelosi placed a 911 call during last Friday's attack after convincing the assailant to let him go to the bathroom where his phone was charging. And he spoke cryptically to police. The body cam footage is expected to show what police saw when Paul Pelosi opened the door and his assailant attacked him with a hammer, fracturing his skull. But again, you're not going to get to see it. David DePape, the man accused of violently attacking Pelosi last Friday, was arraigned in court on Tuesday, and he pleaded not guilty to a litany of state charges. He was released from San Francisco Hospital and moved to the county jail on Tuesday, according to a spokesperson from the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. On Monday, the Justice Department filed federal charges against DePape for assault and attempted kidnapping. An FBI affidavit accompanying the charges provided a detailed account of the 911 call and the alleged attack on the husband of the speaker. According to the affidavit, Paul called 911 at 2:23 a.m. Pacific time and stated words to the effect that there was a male in the home. The male is going to wait for Pelosi's wife. Pelosi further conveyed that he does not know who the male is. The male said his name is David. And we have what the current narrative is now. What is clear to me is that he tried to kill Mr. Pelosi. San Francisco Police Chief William Scott told CNN's Anderson Cooper. Evidence also shows that it was clearly a break-in, the police chief said. I don't know. I still have a bunch of questions about this one. The WAPO argues against releasing Pelosi attack footage, drawing outrage. Stupidly short-sighted. From Nicholas Lanham. A Washington, I think it's supposed to be Washington Post. It says Washington Peace. A Washington Post analysis piece faced heavy criticism from Twitter users for suggesting that public access to the video surveillance tape from Paul Pelosi's home intrusion would mostly serve to extend conspiracy theories about the attack. Why? because we can see what happened with audio. How? The fact that you're hiding it is what's fueling the conspiracy theories. Nothing extends a conspiracy like total transparency from the democracy dies in darkness crowd. It's telling us what they will fight to keep in the darkness, isn't it? Columnist and podcast host Derek Hunter tweeted. Independent journalist and podcaster Tim Pool simply replied to the shared story with the words, "War is peace!" A nod to the notion of doublespeak from the George Orwell novel 1984. Poole went on then to go find a microphone and a camera that he could scream into and say, "Civil war is upon us! This is the first attack off of this, and this is going to be a civil war, and we're already in one. Even though I say that it's coming, we're already in one again." This is stupidly short-sighted. Red State senior editor Joe Cunningham chimed in. And more of them, the political and cultural left, don't know what conspiracy theories are, the same way they don't know what disinformation is. For the same reason, those are like catch-all phrases for facts and arguments they all don't like. Together, it's Slack shorthand. Ian Miles Chong, who is still gray, says asking for evidence is literal terrorism. We saw a little bit of this earlier on when we talked about off the USA Today, but the security cameras were not being monitored at the time, partially because, again, somebody was probably playing Candy Crush at the time that this happened, and B, because Nancy was in Washington, D.C. USCP saw police lights, rewound the video, and saw the break-in, sources say. So, that's what we see coming off the Pelosi story. I really, honestly, I don't believe any of it. And I haven't for a while. Some more financial news here. Meta could begin large-scale layoffs this week, report says. So apparently your boomer parents are not out there enough clicking in and sharing each other's posts and watching the advertisements because Meta can't afford to keep as many people around anymore. Now that would make sense because I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi does have information, and Paul by extension, that would lead to the arrest and prosecution of Hillary Clinton. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it wouldn't surprise me. From Ashley Caput. Wow, that is an image that I never wanted to see in my entire life. A digitized version of the person who's going to be the god of the metaverse once he tries to connect us all to the metaverse. That's terrifying. Meta could begin large-scale layoffs as soon as Wednesday, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. The layoffs are expected to impact thousands of employees, the report said, and the move could mark the first major headcount reduction in Meta's history. At the end of September, the company reported that it had more than 87,000 employees. Why? The vast majority of the content that's provided to the Boomer Book is provided by people like you and me. Why do you need 87,000 people to monitor it? A Meta spokesperson declined to comment and referred CNBC to Zuckerberg's comments on the company's latest earnings call last month. In 2023, we are going to focus our investments on a small number of high priority growth areas, Zuckerberg said at the time. That means some teams will grow meaningfully, but most of our other teams will stay afloat or shrink over the next year. In aggregate, we expect to end 2023 as either roughly the same size or even a slightly smaller organization than we are today. Now, please submit data. I need data to eat and consume and sell and to coat with Sweet Baby Ray's. Data. You will become a part of the metaverse. Resistance is futile. Meta shares have plummeted 73% this year, falling to their lowest since early 2016, and the social media giant is now the worst performer in the S&P 500 in 2022, and that's probably saying something. Oh. I don't have this organized the way that I wanted to. I'm actually going to skip this one because this is a lot of the same stuff that we saw about the conspiracy theory thing, Wars piece. I got one from the Post Millennial, and then I've also got the article that it referenced here, and this was put into the Discord by... Let me make sure I give credit where credit's due on this one. 4am Critter, friend from Europe, put this in here. Breaking! DHS leaked email confirms Antifa is an organized group. I think everybody knew that already. An internal email from the Department of Homeland Security leaked to the CBS Catherine Herridge late Monday, detailing the violence in Portland as was not opportunistic but rather organized, confirming long suspected details about the Antifa movement. Yeah, we know. The email explains that Antifa is organized and runs contrary to reports in the mainstream media that Antifa was not responsible for anti-police violence, but an impromptu movement spurred on by anti-fascist sentiments held by most of the American public. And yet, with instances of police brutality still coming up across the country, even in a racial manner, they have not shown up once this year. A recent article in the Washington Post by Mark Bray, author of Antifa, Anti-Fascist Handbook, attempted to dispel myths about Antifa, claiming the group is not an organization, but rather a tradition of militant anti-fascism. The article disputed claims that Antifa masterminds violence at BLM protests. In a printed email document obtained by Herridge, the DHS, acting Under Secretary for Intelligence and Analysis Brian Murphy, wrote to his colleagues on July 25th, detailing his findings of Antifa in Portland. Murphy urged for an immediate change of definitions for the violent activity in Portland, following a review of the individuals arrested by federal authorities as well as intelligence surrounding their affiliations and activities. The individuals are violently attacking federal facilities based on these ideologies, he said in regards to Antifa, which he classed as VAAI, or Violent Antifa Anarchist Inspired. We can't say any longer that this violent situation is opportunistic, wrote Murphy. Additionally, we have overwhelming intelligence regarding the ideologies driving individuals towards violence and why the violence has continued. A core set of threat actors are organized, show up night after night, share common TTPs, and drawing in on like-minded individuals to their cause. TTP stands for Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures. I recognize we may not be able to attribute every individual as VAAI, however, we need to look at the totality of the intelligence, both current and previous, and recognize the motivation for the violence and why people have shown up to commit violence for about 60 days, and why the individuals are using social media to encourage the VAAI on the ground to carry out acts of violence. The nightly riots in Portland numbered at 60 days when the email was composed. Rioting has shifted from Portland to other cities with some of the same actors, including DC, Seattle, and Kenosha, violence of which was spurred largely by pro-Antifa advocates on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. I need to check on something here. Do we have a date on this? This looks like this actually might be an old article. But this does go on to reference an article coming from Gizmodo. Okay, I see why he did this, because this was published yesterday. And it was making a reference to this here. Homeland Security admits it tried to manufacture fake terrorists for Trump. Woo! I'm sorry, you won't get any tears off me for that one, because I'm not a fan of Candace Owens. I'd like to see the report of why she actually got canned, but I just remember her early YouTube days where she would full out dox anybody who disagreed with her. I've never been a fan of Candace Owens. In fact, I stopped listening to the Daily Wire entirely when they put her on. The DHS launched a failed operation that ensnared hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. protesters in what new documents show was a sweeping, power-hungry effort before the 2020 election to bolster President Trump's spurious claims about a terrorist organization he accused his Democrat rivals of supporting. An internal investigative report made public this month by Ron Wyden, a Democrat of Oregon, details the findings of DHS lawyers concerning a previously undisclosed effort by Trump's acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, to amass secret dossiers on Americans in Portland attending anti-racism protests in the summer of 2020, sparked by the police murder of Minneapolis father George Floyd. It is Gizmodo. Just remember that when you realize what you just read right there. No, dude, doxing is one of my big ones. Doxing is one that's an unforgivable for me. Again, that's why that's one of the only rules that I have in my Discord that you can get instantly banned for by anybody. Is if you dox somebody, even yourself. I like to have the chance to go back and have actual discussions with people where they don't have to worry about the reprisal going to their employers. And if they want to come in and hide their identities, but even if it goes further than that, even if they use their real identities but leave their addresses out of it and anything else, Owens let all that out there to the public, and I can't forgive that one. That is an unforgivable. The report describes attempts by top officials to link protesters to an imaginary terrorist plot in an apparent effort to boost Trump's re-election odds, raising concerns about now about the ability of a sitting president to co-opt billions of dollars worth of domestic intelligence assets for their own political gains. DHS analysts recounted orders to generate evidence of financial ties between protesters in custody, an effort that, had they not failed, would have seemingly served to legitimize President Trump's false claim about Antifa, an organization that even his most loyal intelligence officers failed to drum up proof ever existed. The DHS report offers a full accounting of the intelligence activities happening behind the scenes of officers' protest, containment, twisted efforts, Wyden said, of Trump's admins, officials promoting baseless conspiracy theories to manufacture of a domestic terrorist threat for the president's political gain. The report describes dossiers generated by DHS as having detailed the past whereabouts and the friends and followers of the subject, as well as their interests, up to including First Amendment speech activity. Intelligence analysts had internally raised concerns about the decision to accuse anyone caught in the streets by default of being an anarchist extremist, because sufficient facts were never found to support such a characterization. So, TLDR on all of this, and I did page through this one a little bit before getting out here and checking all this out. But TLDR is the fact that they're coming out and saying that it looked like there was an attempt to go and link Antifa as an organization, and while Catherine Herridge was able to do so all the way back in 2020, the DHS was unable to under Trump. As far as what I believe Antifa is, I think that they are highly paid government actors who are out there to co-opt a specific outcome from things, but I think the same thing about the Pride Boys, Patriot Front, the Oath Keepers, and BLM for that matter. And again, the big one that came off this, the one that really got my sensors going when we talk about this kind of thing, is the fact that when we go out and do these kinds of things, when we see this kind of things, these groups of people just show up constantly where they're not invited, and it's usually within an hour of an incident happening. They can be there. And that does raise the question as to how many of these are actual grassroots and how many of them are staged. And the big one, the one that really made me say, was the fact that BLM tried to organize a protest and an actual unjustified shooting of Patrick Loyola in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And 20 people showed up. And it didn't even make the national news. The Loyola shooting didn't even make the national news. That shooting was absolutely unjustified. I know that I stand at odds with people like Horatius and KTZed when I say something like that, but that was an absolutely unjustified shooting. Something that actually should have mounted protests. And we got absolutely nothing off of that. Antifa didn't come in, BLM didn't show up, the Pride Boys didn't go anywhere. But they always show up when there's a political agenda to go push forward. And they can pretty honestly always find time and a place to go fight in the street. And that's what I have to say about that. Let's get out of here for the day. Before we do, the last thing we do on a Tuesday is we check out Twitter trending and see what it is that Twitter thinks we should be talking about and compare it to what we actually did talk about here. So let's bring up the Explore page. Let's bring up the trending page and let's see what our top 5 trends on the day are. We will skip over Tuesday Thoughts and Tuesday Motivation. And in fact, I'm going to combine the first 5 all together because they all have the same... You know what? They're all going to be the same thing, I can tell you that. Up until we get down to AFC Champions and Ed Sheeran, they're all going to be the same. Which actually is something we should be telling about this. So we'll go actually a bonus 6 and we'll look at some of the things that are happening here. But our top 5 trends today are Election Day, Vote Blue to Save Democracy, Go Vote, Vote Blue Today, and Maricopa County. And Vote Red 2022 is down in there as well. Election Day, hashtag Election Day. Pressler, the persistence. This is the moment we've been waiting for. We left it all in the field and done everything we could to elect Republicans into office. Go vote and overwhelm the polls. More Pressler. Republicans are 1,000 votes away from taking the lead in Hillsborough County. This shouldn't be happening. Tampa is a Democrat stronghold. Vote, vote, vote. Matthew Colkin with the hashtag Election Day says, may today be the last time we ever hear the name Beto. Pressler again. New York, go out and vote Zeldin. President Biden has a message for you. For those of thinking about voting Republicans in this cycle in order to reverse the downward spiral, we've been in for 2 years. These words should help you decide. This is from the real Vinnie James. Let's hear what the Houseplant Chief has to say about this.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. America is a nation
I remember that
can
one.
be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that Los Angeles and what am I doing here? for two reasons. One, we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way. But the nature, not a solid meeting with they make a very good point. Here's the deal. Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers.
We want to expand pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, millions of pre-K students.
I don't know, I'm convinced. The motivating speech, the clips of speeches that Biden put out there, I guess I'm convinced now. By the way, 220,000 tweets, and you'll notice that's not in the top trends.
The best way to get something done.
Right, shut up, you. Michael Waite for Congress says, be the pebble in the shoe of the ruling class today. Vote Libertarian. I'm going to go out on a no for that one. Looks like they're already counting Florida, which I thought they didn't start counting that until after the polls closed, unless this is exit polling. But Duval County is up 6,000 votes for the Republican. Miami-Dade is up 6,000 votes for the Republicans. And Pinellas is up 3,000, with the polls only being open for an hour. And the last one, before we go on to the other trend, is fascism is when Democrats lose, according to r/Illinois. Translation, democracy is at stake when my party doesn't win on a platform. I don't know what platform this is. Pet Dance says, found the fascist. The Lost Lieutenant says fascism when Democrats don't win the election, /sarcasm. And Barack3895 says, yeah, actually. Is this Reddit? Oh, well, yeah, I guess I should have known that too, because it's r/Illinois. So yes, that is Reddit. I like that. I'm saving that one. That one's going in the Discord. Texas, this is your day. Beto for Senate. No. Beto for President. No. Beto for Texas Governor. No. I'm going to put that in the Discord right now. Also, Jake Paul's tiny left nut, if you're here, that's disturbing. And if you're not in the Discord, you don't see it. What I just referenced. Alright, next trend. Vote blue to save democracy, with 89.1 thousand votes to Red Tsunami's up there now, but vote Republican to 220,000 votes. That's not the top trend. Let's see how many paid shills are up there that we can count in just a few minutes. Lakota Man, paid. Angry Staffer, paid. Mary Trump, paid. Mark Hamill, paid. Jojo from Jers, paid. That's 5. Harry Potter Resists. That's not a paid one, but it should be. So, not as many of the paid shills as we usually get in there. I thought for sure we'd see Jersey, My Wife's Son, Reliant, and... well, I guess I can't see Palmer or Tiedrick because they blocked me. Valerie Burton Ernie. Save Social Security. The left is not going to get rid of Social Security, by the way. Number 3, go vote! No, I'm not clicking on either of those. Piss off. Libs of TikTok telling you to go vote. Tulsi Gabbard telling you to go vote. Beto O'Rourke, Pressler, Clay Travis. So another big one of spam blue checks, but Cambry. Election Wizard says the red wave depends on you. Let's see. Vote blue today. Probably going to be the same people. Let's see how long it takes to get us to 5. Oh, right there. People, you can go for John Fetterman, but... we got a dumb... We're going to count this twice. Jersey, my wife's son Reliant. I'm going to vote blue today because I refuse to allow anyone to turn my daughter and our daughters into second-class citizens without bodily autonomy. So there's one. Pelosi will count as that. Team Pelosi. Another one of Jersey, my wife's son Reliant. Midas Touch. Dworkin. Mueller, she wrote. JoJo from Jers. There's 7. Retweet and reply with vote blue today if you agree that Rick Scott, Mitch McConnell, and every other Republican wants to end Social Security and Medicare can go F themselves. Social Security is ours. We paid into it. No, that's actually not the truth either, but you did pay into it, yes, but you didn't pay in nearly as much as you're going to get back out of it because of inflationary data and the decline in population. No, you're not going to get everything out that you paid. You're going to get way more out of it than you paid into it. It's an entitlement. But not only that, that's not even a mainline part of the Republican platform. That is a Rick Scott proposal that got shut down immediately. Man, they're spamming that jerk off into this. Fanning, raise your hand and show us what a real Brooklyn dad looks like. Maricopa County is trending. Carrie Lake is getting flooded with calls and text messages from people who are having trouble voting all over Maricopa County. This is why we must reform elections. Poll worker says that in all important Maricopa County, the machines are broken. Why in Maricopa? Does anybody else have a question about that? I have questions about that.
Of course, I know everybody wants to make sure that it reads and everything is fine.
Can you repeat that?
I can promise
Can you start from the beginning and repeat that?
So what happens is we have 2 tabulators. One of the tabulators is not working, okay? The other tabulator is taking about 75% successful. So 25% of them are being misread, and it could be a printer issue, or it could be the tabulator itself. So when it's misread, you have an option to put it into what's called box 3, and it gets read, whether it goes downtown and gets read manually, or whether it gets refed into our tabulator.
You don't want to adjudicate.
They get read,
No.
okay? So no one's trying to deceive anybody.
Of course not. Not on election day. That would never happen, right? No, that would never happen.
So choices are, you guys. Sure.
If I get up there and that happens to my ballot, can I take my ballot with me and go somewhere else?
You do not leave the premises with the ballot. Sorry, and there's not like you can go
because I don't trust to go in the box. The box may never make it down there.
No way.
All the time.
The choice is.
I'll come back.
The choice is to wait until.
And Posobiec, right there next there, says Maricopa County is fortifying the election so hard right now. Of course there's going to be a problem in Maricopa. Democracy dies in Maricopa County. I can't wait for the Razor Fist rant to come off of that. And a bonus, number 6, Vote Red 2022. Anna Hoffman, March 13th, 2020, last walk to the bus stop. 2 weeks to flatten the curve became 2.5 years. Canceled birthdays, lost Christmases, covered faces, unnecessary testing, endless fear. I will make sure they never get a chance to do it again. Vote red 2022. Bruce redacted. Don't forget what Democrats said and what they did and did. Ian Curie's faux publicist. That one I can't read on YouTube. Can't wait to get out and vote red 2022 today. I even got my red shirt. I'm unaffiliated, says Ian Curie's faux publicist. However, at this point, anyone shilling for the Democrat Party is anti-God, anti-nature, anti-common sense. And with that, we're going to call this one and head out of here for the day, because I need to go and vote the way that I'm going to vote. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say to this is, some of you have already voted, and that's appreciated. Some of you are not going to vote, John, because you feel that it's against the anarchist way to impose your will on people. That's fine. And what I'll say to this is, they're coming in and saying straight down ticket, vote party, vote party, vote party. And I want to remind you that you still have a say in this, and there are going to be bad Republicans that try to sneak in. And I mean, we're coming to a point where all Democrats are bad. We're getting to that point. There is not a single good Republican that is on my ballot this year. And I've researched everybody on both sides of the aisle and the LP candidates and everything else. Vote your conscience before anything else. As I've said, I will be voting for Tim Michaels. I've met Tim Michaels. He's an alright guy. Does a lot of work around here. Very successfully. I have no problem voting for him as the governor of my state. I am still on the fence whether or not I will be voting for Brian Stile, the replacement Paul Ryan. I'm still on that fence. I don't know if I can do that or not. Not because he's a bad person. He's just a do-nothing person. He's a rubber stamp, a name on anything. He doesn't have any legislation attributed to him. Maybe renaming some post offices, stuff like that. He's a do-nothing congressperson. I will not vote for Ron Johnson. I know that disappoints my friend. Well, I can't even think of his name right now. I don't know his real name, but I know he's in my notifications. Yeah, Wisconsin Neanderthal. I know that disappoints him, but I will not be voting for Ron Johnson. Because I can't get behind two of the iterations that he's been. He's never been an American First candidate up until he's found out that it would get him a lot of popularity among people. He's never been anything like that. He's never been a MAGA. He's never been an American First. He was the Jesus, standard bearer Republican, and then the warmonger, Bushite Republican. Whatever was going to give him the most power. Know who you're voting for. Know who you're trying to get put into office. Know it well. Because the GOP can turn around and be just as corrupted as the Democrats have become. Look at Liz Cheney. Look at Adam Kinzinger. But also remember, aid to Ukraine is on the ballot, excessive spending is on the ballot, and an endorsement of Joe Biden's agenda is also on the ballot right now. And Democrat hegemony is also on the ballot, which they will remind you. And that is my final pitch to you, and we're going to head out of here for the day. But first, I have to find where my outro music is. There it is. So, with that, we're done. We're out of here. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who hung out. And we had a very lively one today. And yes, I'll be back here later on. I'll probably be starting about 6 o'clock Central Time when we're going to start to see some of these results start to roll in. And, you know, by that point, I'll have a general idea of what the mood is around everything, around what we're going to see. I'm going to open up the Discord for calls too, by the way. So if you're not in the Discord, reach out to somebody who is in the Discord, and they can come back out and help you. There's a process for getting into the call room, so definitely come back and join for that. But yeah, we'll be taking calls, because with everything that's happening with a possible move that's coming from for me in the near future, I forgot to get guests for the day. I think we'll be doing a cross stream with the Porch Boys too. They'll be on my channel and I'll be on theirs at the same time. So watch for that as well. We can feed both of us into both of our streams, so you can come back and comment on both of us. We can read comments back and forth to each other. But yeah, get in the Discord, come in. We'll see. I want to see what happened in your polling places too. So come back and join that. That is in the description in most platforms. Let me put that in there myself, so you can see it over on the D Live and over on the YouTube side as well, because my Nightbot shut down when I got banned from YouTube. So let me get that link in there right before we go. But after that, yeah, we gotta head out of here. I gotta go vote, you guys. I'm gonna vote. Imagine voting. I'm gonna vote. And there you go. If you're not in the Discord yet, get in the Discord. We'll take calls. But with that, we're out of here for the day. Remember, by the way, that we might have trouble moving you into the call room if you're on a Discord mobile, so do keep that in mind as you go. And we're out of here for the day. Thanks, everybody. Stick around. We're going to go raid the Daily Ignoramus. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care. Oh, maybe we're not.